Hi sewing friends, this is Kim. Welcome to Dorothy's Daughter and welcome to Friday Sewing School. We're working on Simplicity 8795 and we're making the pencil skirt. And today we're going to be doing the darts, the side seams, and the invisible zipper. So I invite you to come along as we sew that today. In the meantime, I just want to say a special thank you and hello to my new subscribers. If you enjoy sewing and you want to expand your skills, please go ahead and click the subscribe button. And if you'd like to know when a new video is released, click the bell as well. We'd love to have you as part of our community. We do enjoy talking back and forth in the comments. I love the comments that I've gotten. I love answering questions, and I don't like any question to go unanswered, which is why at the very beginning of this video I'm going to answer one that was posed in the comments. I have someone who would like to know how to do a full bust adjustment. So before we get to our skirt, I'm going to demonstrate that for you, and I'll do that right now. Okay, for your full bust adjustment, you need your bodice pattern, you need a ruler, your paper scissors, some kind of marker, and a pencil, okay? So the first thing you're going to do is, this pattern did not have the apex on it, so I measured and figured out where that would be. The next thing you want to do is you want to draw a line from the center of your bottom dart. This is for a pattern that has a bottom dart, but the process is pretty much the same no matter where your dart is, and you can always move darts around. So you're going to draw from the apex through the middle of that dart. Then you're going to measure your 5/8 seam allowance right here, about 1/3 of the way down, somewhere on the arm side, just to make sure that the dart is coming from up above your apex so that it doesn't cause a lot of bagging. So, so 5/8 of an inch. Okay, then I'm going to draw a line from that point over to my apex. And I'm actually going to go all the way through there, okay? And then a third line I'm going to draw is just going to be right at my apex to the side. Ruler keeps moving on me here. Okay? Now the first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut this line, make this cut up to the apex. Then you're going to continue over just to where you marked that seam allowance, but don't go through it. Okay? Then you're going to come over here and cut the seam allowance, but don't go through the actual line, so that you have like a point to pivot. And then you just want to cut this line over to your apex point, to it but not through it. Okay, so then you should have pieces that look like this. All right, so you can move this apart and give yourself more fullness in your bust, and this should pivot right on that seam allowance, so it'll kind of overlap there. Okay, and so you're gonna pull that as much as you need to. If you need to add 1 inch, you're gonna measure that there, or however much you need. You'll notice it's kind of creating a dart here, or either adding length or creating a dart. Okay, so basically you can just true it up and have a longer bodice, or you can actually make a dart there, in which case you wouldn't have to do anything with the length. But if you want to leave that way, then what you're going to do is you're going to cut here on this length and shorten line. Get that back where it was here. Little stray pieces of paper. Okay. On that length and shorten line, and then you're going to lengthen that to where it's the same length on the bottom. And you'll do this all on tissue paper so that you can tape it all down and you're good to go. And that's a very simple full bust adjustment. So I hope that helped. That is the basics of putting in a full bust adjustment. There are ways of doing it dartless. In other words, if you have a knit or something like that. We'll go over that at another time. There are definitely some online already that you can refer to as well. I would like now to switch gears and talk about our skirt. So today we're going to go ahead and sew up the side seams, do the darts, and apply the zipper. So I'm going to get right to that, and then I'll have a few comments for you at the end. I'm going to go ahead and mark my darts. Remember I said I don't like to do the markings until after I cut everything out. And what I like to use to transfer dart markings is this, it's called Choco Copy, and it's like a carbon paper, but it's actually chalk, and it marks really well. And I'm going to do this on the wrong side. And I'm just going to line my pattern piece up. Make sure it's all lined up well. And then I'm just going to take my tracing wheel. I'm going to go on the other side because it's a little difficult here. Just go ahead and take my tracing wheel and mark these dart markings. Let's just make sure they went through on the other side. Okay. See, I have the dart marking there. Now I'm going to flip this over and do it on the other side, which means I'm also going to have to flip the pattern piece over, but I actually have my markings by seeing where the tracing wheel went. So have that back down where it belongs. Make sure that went through. Okay. All right, so now I have my front darts marked. I'm going to look and see what other things I need to mark on this pattern piece. Remember, I'm doing this on the wrong side. Excuse me. I don't see any other markings that I need to do. There is a notch right here, so I'm going to go ahead and mark that notch as well. It's hidden in the fold right there. So I'm going to go put this back down. And now you can mark that notch in a number of ways. But I usually just do a little clip at the notch, making sure I don't go through the seam allowance. Okay. All right, so I have this front piece marked. Put that aside for a moment. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pin and sew our darts. Just kind of put the pin through and match it from the other side. I like to put one just kind of pointing at the end so that I know where it ends and begins. And then what I do, sometimes I'll just put a pin through this side and make sure it comes out at the right, which it didn't. Okay, so that I know that the fold is all correct on that one. Do the same thing here. Okay, I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and I'm going to go ahead and sew these darts. Always sew from the wide part to the narrow part, and don't back stitch when you get to the end. Just go ahead and sew all this way around. Just go ahead and sew right off of it, and then you can just tie the two ends of the thread to keep from having a big pucker at the end of your dart. All right, I'm going to go sew those and I'll be right back. I'm then going to go ahead and do the very same thing with the back. Go ahead and pin my darts and sew them. At this point it can be tricky to know what's the front and what's the back, so be sure to kind of keep that in your mind. What you can do, what I've done before, what you can do is take a little piece of tape and just put it on the front piece, and that way you're not going to get them mixed up, because they look very similar, even though the darts are a little smaller on the back. Yeah, they look pretty much the same. So you don't want to get them mixed up, or it's not going to fit you correctly. I'm going to baste these side seams down to on the right side. I'm going to just go down to the notch where the zipper will stop. But I'm just going to baste these and then check fit. Now if you did a muslin and it's fitting well, you can skip this step. But since I did not muslin this particular skirt, I am going to just check my fit before I go any further. Because if I have to adjust the side seams, I don't want to have to do that with the zippers already installed. So I'm just going to baste them. When you baste, just use the longest stitch possible on your machine so that it's easy to pull out. Okay, so you'll notice I have a pretty good fit as far as the way this is laying. I have it on inside out so that I can easily adjust things if I need to. The back is pretty good, which I have a sway back, so that's actually laying pretty nice on me, better than most patterns do. The full tummy was a good idea. So it comes up and I have good tummy coverage for it. The one thing I am going to do though is it is not snug enough here. So I'm going to take this in quite a bit on either side, and then just gradually get that into the hip line. Okay, I'm just going to show you how I'm going to adjust this side seam here. I've measured and it was about an inch altogether taken off of it. So I'm going to do like 1 5/8 inches. And that's where my new seam line is going to be, starting here. Okay, and then I'm going to take my hip curve and just work that right in to the hip seam, which is right here. It all helps if the ruler works. All right, and so then this will be my new seam line, and this will be my seam allowance. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So as you go ahead and sew up your side seam on the left, go ahead and finish that seam and then finish the edges of the right side so that we can press that open after we apply our zipper, okay? Okay, so we have the two halves that we want to put the invisible zipper in. And this is the right side, this is the wrong side. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our zipper, and first thing I want you to do is visualize how it's going to be on here, okay? That helps a lot with the process. So if you can think of the fact that you want it to end up like this and invisible. So you're going to want to sew it here and here, okay? So so we visualized how it's going to go in there. And we have our two halves. There's a little bit of marking I want to do. All right, I'm going to line those up together so that they meet at the top. I'm going to take my zipper and mark it where the zipper stop is on both sides. See that? I'm just marking it where the zipper stop is on both sides. Okay? And then I'm going to mark our seam allowance on both halves. This little seam gauge is a wonderful thing. So you can take your 5/8 seam allowance and mark it here. This is hard to see because it's dark. But you can see this is our 5/8 seam allowance right there. And I'm just going to put some chalk marking right there, because I want the zipper stop to stop right there. And same on this side. If you take the time to do these markings, it'll go a long way toward making sure that your zipper isn't wonky at the end. So I have my seam allowance marked on both sides, okay? So just the way that we visualized the zipper, we're going to go ahead and sew. All right, so we're going to, on the right side, we're going to line that chalk marking up with that one. And you're going to want it to be 5/8 over where the zipper lines up, which you can see on your machine. But go ahead and just pin that there, and you can pin it in a couple places. If you want to, one thing that's helpful, you can just pin it, or you can actually even take a little bit of glue stick, real lightly go over it, and just stick it down too. It's not permanent, it does wash away. Okay? And you're going to be going down to the notch. And then I just usually would put a pin at the end. Okay, so we're gonna sew that side. All right, I'm gonna take you over to the machine with me. Your machine. This is a concealed zipper foot or invisible zipper foot. Go ahead and put that on. It has channels so that the zipper can just ride right through. And as you see, I'm going to put this channel to the right of the needle, okay? Hopefully you can see that okay. I know it's bad that it's dark. I have a knack for picking dark fabrics when I do this. I don't know why. Okay, now my seam allowances are marked on this side as well. And I want the zipper to be, I'm going to actually line it up with about 4/8 rather than 5 because the outside of the zipper is actually about 1/8 of an inch. I have my needle down and I'm just going to start sewing. Now when I get to the zipper stop, sometimes I have to hand crank it through there. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and sew this down. All the while, make sure that the zipper is staying in the channel. Okay. And then I'm just going to go ahead and back stitch and pull it out. I'm going to go ahead and make sure my zipper closes and that everything is facing the right way. As you can see, that's all lined up good at the top. All right. And now we're going to do the other side. Okay, so I have half of the zipper in, and I'm getting ready to do the other half. So I've got it laid here so that I make sure I turn it the right way. Okay, so if you go this way, it's not going to be correct. What you have to do then is turn this one this way. All right, I'm going to line up the lines where I marked the seam allowance and put a pin, and I'm going to come down to the notch. Now you can use the glue stick and or Wonder Tape or anything that you want to hold that down if you feel like you need it. As long as I get started right, I'm fine, because I just use that 4/8 of an inch mark, because this is about 1/8 of an inch. So the seam line is actually 5/8 of an inch if you do that. And I just use the seam gauge on the sewing machine, and this zipper part glides under the needle. All right, I'm going to take you with me to the machine to do the other half. Big thing is though, make sure that these line up so that your zipper lines up at the end. Part of the zipper right under that foot. It just glides right through. Making sure these two chalk marks are lined up. And when I get to the zipper stop, I want to hand crank it just to make sure they stay lined up, because if you don't, it'll keep pushing it down and then it won't line up in the end. So I just hand crank it past that zipper foot. And sometimes you have to just make sure it stays there. Once you get past that zipper stop, then you're good to go, and you can just sew it. I'm just lining it up with the 4/8 seam allowance here. I'm figuring that the zipper itself is about 1/8 of an inch wide. Right down to the notch. All right, done there. I'm gonna clip my threads here right away because I don't want them to get tangled in the zipper. Same up here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close my zipper and make sure everything lines up properly. All the way to the top. Okay, I'm real good. So you can see my zipper goes all the way to the top. I've got my 5/8 of an inch seam allowances up here that will go into the facing, and my zipper is in very nicely. Put the regular foot back on. Okay, so I'm going to sew the side seam starting at just about 1/2 inch above where the zipper left off. And I'm going to go as close as I can to where the zipper is without, see, all the way down here. Go as close as I can to the zipper without sewing over it. And then go ahead and do your side seam. Hope you guys have great plans for the weekend. I don't have any plans this weekend, which is actually kind of refreshing for a change. Okay. So my seam is done. Need to clip all my threads. Make sure you don't leave any threads hanging, because they will. They definitely will get caught in your zipper. Okay, let's look and see what this looks like before we shorten the zipper. So here we've got our zipper comes down to there. Won't go any further because the seam stops it. And there we go. All right, now we're going to shorten our zipper. What I do is I just take the zipper and go down about an inch from where you stopped with it, an inch down from where the zipper stops. And I'm going to put it on a zigzag stitch, basically a bar tack. So I've made a new zipper stop essentially. Clip threads here. And then all I'm going to do is go ahead and just cut that off right below where I did the bar tack. And then you can throw the rest of this away. And now we have our skirt with our zipper in and both side seams done. And next Friday we will put on the facings and finish up the hem. All right, so I hope that you have enjoyed sewing this skirt. Next week we'll be finishing it up. On Tuesday, it will be my turn to present for Sewtember 2019. Sewtember is a thing for National Sewing Month, and that is where we are sewing free patterns. And if you sew one of the patterns that we're demonstrating, you go ahead and post it on Instagram or somewhere with the hashtag Sewtember 2019, and you will be eligible for some very good prizes. Akram from Akram's Ideas is administrating this, and she's just done a phenomenal job. There are 6 of us doing the challenge. It's myself, Claire from Penguin and Pear, Megan Handmade, Whitney Sews, Elizabeth Made This, and of course Akram's Ideas. This Tuesday is my turn, and we'll be sewing the Colette Sorbetto. And the Colette Sorbetto is a woven tank top with a pleat detail, and actually I am wearing the first one I ever made. This is out of a knit, but I kind of adapted the pattern to a knit. But I'll stand up so you can see. It has a really nice pleat detail here, and it's a great pattern to sew. So I hope that you'll join me on Tuesday and we'll do that together. Well, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope you have a lot of sewing ahead. I know I do. I know this weekend is going to be filled with sewing, and I'm so excited because I don't have any other major plans except to stay in, watch the Buckeye football game, and sew. So that sounds like a great weekend to me. Well, enjoy yourselves this weekend, and happy sewing.